Good morning, Percussion. It is Fun Friday, and I'm having a good time. I hope you are too. Today, you will learn more percussion. All right, so we are on page 29A. 29A on this beautiful Friday morning. 29A. Looking at more dotted more 16th eighth note patterns. Now, so far we have gone over an eighth note and 2/16ths, right? 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1. Now we can also have it written where we have 2/16ths and then the eighth. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. All right, so think about that. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 3 and. So we're leaving out the 1 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E. Some of y'all do that without meaning to. We'll be playing 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and, then you just don't play the last All right. So we need to work on doing that. But when you look at it, we're on line 415. We're going to cover several new simple little concepts today. So that's the first one. The second was the one measure repeat sign. Now we had that at the winter concert. That's not new, but you're going to need to read that more. You have a little slash with the two dots on either side of it. That means go back one measure, play the last written measure again. So whatever it was, because you have a lot of those little repeat signs in a row, whatever the last written measure was, you're going to keep playing that pattern over and over and over. So let's count 4-1-4-15. We're in 4/4 time, piano. Ready and go. 1 E and 2 and 3 E and 4 and 1 E and 2 and 3 E and 4 and 1 E and 2 E and 3 and 4 and 1 E and 2 E and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 E and 3 and 4 E and 1 and 2 E and 3 and 4 E and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 and 4. All right, a lot of visual clutter there. We've got two lines, tambourine, woodblock, bass drum. We've got all kinds of things going on. Stay focused on just the snare part. All right? My phone's a little crooked, so I can fix that. Better? Yeah. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, ready, and go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and 4 and 1 and a 2 and a 3 and 4. Okay, 4/16 is one of those. It's really just kind of an accompaniment for the wind parts. There's nothing challenging here for the drum line. 2 and ready and go. 1, well, it's cross sticky. Ready and go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Okay, that was a no-brainer. Next page. Return of the dot. All right. What we're talking about is dotted quarter notes. Now, we had dotted half notes, if you recall, and this is mainly a keyboard thing, but you do need to be able to count this on snare music as well. Dotted half notes, 3 beats long. And the reason why is a dot adds half the value of the note to the note. So if you had a half note, which is normally worth 2 beats, we add 1 beat to it. 2 plus 1 is 3. Okay. So if we want to have a dotted quarter note, a quarter note is normally worth 1 beat. What's half of 1? 1/2. Okay. So a dotted quarter gets 1.5 beats. So 1 and 2, and the next thing would fall on the next and. So it'll either be an eighth rest or an eighth note following a dotted quarter note. So if you have a dotted quarter note, the next thing is almost always going to be an and for now. Exception to every rule. So realize that. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 2 and 3 and. The next thing will be an and. So let's clap and count 417. Ready? Ready and go. 1, 2, and 3. 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3. So what they did in the second measure, they created that length, that beat and a half length with a tie. In the third measure, they created the beat and a half length with the dotted quarter note. Same length, two different ways to write it. All right. Let's go on. 417A is the band practices dotted quarter notes, but you just have 16ths. Let's count that. Ready and go. 1E and a 2 and 3E and a 4 and 1E and a 2E and 3E and a 4E and 1E and a 2E and 3E and a 4E and 1E and a 2 and 3E and a 4. Now, if you look at that, you have in measures 2 and 3 double paradiddles. Double paradiddles, right? 1E and a 2E and 1E and a double paradiddle. 1E and a 2E and. All right, so you do need to use their sticking here. 2 and ready and go. 1E and a 2 and 3E and a 4 and 1E and a 2E and 3E and a 4E and 1E and a 2E and 3E and a 4E and 1E and a 2, 3E and a 4. Not terribly hard once you kind of go through it a couple times, get the sticking in your head. 418, let's count this. And remember, rolls are counted as 16ths. Ready? Go. 1E and a 2 and 3E and a 4 and 1E and a 2 and 3E and a 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3E and a 4. So there's some dotted quarter notes for you, right? Ready? Go. 1E and a 2 and 3E and a 4 and 1E and a 2 and 3E and a 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1 and 2 and 3 and a 4. So a couple of new things now that we're going to start covering. One's called a Ritardanado. All right? It means slow down. It's abbreviated RIT. So when you see RIT above a measure, it means that's going to slow down. So you're going along 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and you hit that RIT 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Just slows the tempo down. Usually happens at the end of the song. Next thing is a dotted quarter note roll, which means it's going to be a beat and a half of bouncing. 1E and a 2E and a 1E and a. 1E and, sorry, 1E and a 2E and a 1E and. It ends on the and of the next beat. And you can tell that because it's tied to an eighth note. There's the and. 1E and a 2E and a 1E 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 and. So let's count the blue box line. Ready? 1E and a 2E and 3, 4 and 1E and a 2E and 3, 4 and 1E and a 2E and 3, 4 and 1E and a 2E and 3, 4 and. Play it. Ready and go. 1E and a 2E and 3, 4 and 1E and a 2E and 3, 4 and 1E and a 2E and 3, 4 and 1E and a 2E and 3, 4. A lot of double on the rights, dude. Enjoy that. Okay, how about 19? 19. Notice your tempo is dolce, sweetly, piano. You have first and second endings on a repeat, and a ritardando at the end in the second ending. So here we go. Let's count it. Ready? Go. 1E and a 2E and 3, 4 and 1E and a 2E and 3, 4 and 1E and a 2, 3, 4E and a, 1E and a 2 and 3E and a 4E and 1 and 2E and a 3, rest. 1E and a 2E and 3, 4 and 1E and a 2E and 3, 4 and 1E and a 2 and 3E and a 4 and 1 and 2E and a 3. Did I skip to the second ending? I almost didn't, but I shifted gears just in time. Here we go. Dolce, a little slower. Ready and go. 1E and a 2E and 3 and 4 and 1E and a 2E and 3, 4 and 1E and a 2 and 3E and a 4E and 1 and 2E and a 3. Rest. 1E and a 2E and 3, 4 and 1E and a 2E and 3, 4 and 1E and a 2 and Retardando. Got to slow it down. One more. Turn page. 420. 420. All right, let's count it. 3, 4 times. Ready and go. 1 and a 2 and 3 and 1 and a 2, 1 and a 2 and 3. Sorry. It's all right. 1 and a 2 and 3. Third measure. 1 and a 2 and 3 and 1 and a 2 and 3. 1 and a 2 and 3 and 1, 2 and 3 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 1 and a 2, 1 and a 2 and 3. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 1 and a 2 and 3. 1 and 2 and a 3 and a 1 and a 2 and 3. 1 and a 2 and 3. 1 and 2 and a 3 and a 1 and a 2 and 3. Could have done a better job of that. Now, one of the things that kind of threw me on this that you got to be careful of is the width of the measures. All right? You get that long, stretched out dotted quarter note, and it looks like, oh, maybe that's the whole, it's too long. And then you get a measure that's written this tiny, and it's still a dotted quarter note. That's a visual trick that really the computers play. They're spacing the measures out to fill up the whole page. It's not really accurate to say the writer's doing it, but when the computer prints it out on the page, it's spacing those measures weirdly. And so some measures are this big, and some measures are this big. And a dotted quarter note will stretch, or a dotted quarter note will be crunched. It's still a dotted quarter note, and it's still counted the same. You can really mess with your mind a little bit if you're not really zeroed in on what's happening and counting there. So let's see if I do it any better while we play it. 2, that's maestoso. So it's slow, right? It's America. Oh, beautiful for space, right? Ready and go. 1 and a 2 and 3 and 1 and a 2 and 3. 1 and a 2 and 3 and 1 and a 2 and 3. 1 and a 2 and 3 and 1, 2 and 3 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 1 and a 2 and 3. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 1 and a 2 and 3. 1 and 2 and a 3 and a 1 and a 2 and 3. 1 and 2 and a 3 and a 1 and a 2 and 3. Got the paradiddles in it. I didn't get the retardando. I also didn't get the 2 eighth note flams. 1 and 2 and a 3 and a 1 and a 2 and 3. At the end of that. Okay? That's going to finish it for today. That'll about cover it. You will get this. You will practice. And you will pass off lines. Have a great week, everybody. May the force be with you.